With us right now, we were just talking during the break. So Stephanie is here. Thank you for coming, by the way.
Thank you so much for having me.
I have this new question that I ask everybody who sits down in front of me, having done this so many years. I forget people I've talked to in the past. This is the first time you've been here.
This is my first year, that's correct.
And I always ask people, why are you doing this, and how important is it for people to know that you're doing this, the reason you're doing this? In the case of your particular son, it's a sad story. Your son is now 4 years old.
That's right.
And he's confined to a wheelchair.
Yes.
What happened? How did it get to this stage? You got to the children's how?
So Jackson was born prematurely at 28 weeks, and I showed up at St. Mary's. That was my original birth plan, thinking that, I have some weird pain in my stomach, I'm going to get checked out. And then an hour later, I'm having an emergency C-section, and Jackson is being transported here to the children's. I'm here today because they literally saved my son's life, and I'm going to be forever grateful to this institution. And I don't have the money to give hundreds of thousands of dollars, but I can give my time and tell my story. That's why I'm here.
So, to your point about this emergency C-section, you started off, as you said, at St. Mary's. You came here. Obviously, things were serious enough. What did they tell you when you got here?
So, because he was during the transportation.
By the way, let me just mention, this happened during COVID, right? During the pandemic.
Yes, that made it even more fun and dramatic that you're going through this incredibly intense thing during the height. It was May 2020. Everything was shut down. After Jackson came here from St. Mary's, I wasn't allowed to come. My husband wasn't allowed to go back and visit me. I wasn't allowed to come here. My mother, he was here for 3 months, and the grandparents weren't allowed to visit for 3 months. The grandmothers almost lost their minds.
So you're here going through this obviously very difficult time for more than just the reason of your son not being well, but because it's in the middle of a pandemic. I can imagine what it was like here at the time.
It was very intense food, yeah.
What'd they tell you? I mean, beyond you being, obviously early, your pregnancy was terminated at that point. What was the prognosis back then?
It was completely 100% unexpected, and they still to this day cannot explain to me why I gave birth prematurely. Yeah. Sometimes, unfortunately, these things just happen.
And after the surgery, I mean, he was here for a while.
Yes.
What sort of things did they do at that point?
So it was determined about a week or two in that he'd had a brain bleed during the transport from St. Mary's to the children's here. And then he also had something called PVL, which it's another... It all means, basically, to sum up, that Jackson will be both physically and intellectually disabled. And it's intense. I don't know how else to describe it.
When you came here, obviously you had no idea of why this had happened. You just know, thank God I'm here because I know this is the best place I can be.
Literally in Canada,
right? Yeah. But I can't imagine what was going through your mind. Number one, you're going through this crisis, and number two, in the middle of a pandemic, you can't have people around you. You can't have your husband here.
My mommy could not be there. Even though you're 35 years old, you still want your mommy with you at a time like that. But thankfully, I have my husband, and thankfully, we had an amazing support system of family and friends who helped take care of us, and continue to do so now.
With respect to that support system, and we talk a lot about that when it comes to the children's, what was it like here, the people working with you then providing?
Oh my God. So the nurses in the NICU here at the Montreal Children are quite literally angels from heaven. They just know that you're going through the most intense moment of your life, and they just know exactly what to say and what to do and when to give you that pat on the back and when to give you that hug and when to tell you that, I've been here a long time and you're going to be okay. And we are.
It's stories like this, and I say this every time. I sort of preface interviews by saying some stories have a happy ending and some perhaps not. We were just talking to a couple who lost their child here, another premature birth at only 19 days.
Oh, wow.
Here you are. It's not certainly the outcome you were expecting or hoping for, but you have a child. He's home. And
Jackson will be disabled, but he's very loved, and that doesn't mean that he's still not going to do and see wonderful things in this world.
What do you want to tell people? Because obviously we're here today asking people who listen to these sorts of stories to understand the amazing work. Everyone says the same thing, certainly in the NICU unit, about what an amazing group they are,
yes.
The staff, the nurses, the doctors. Why should people make a donation today to the children's?
Well, I'm arguing for it because there's families out there that, they come maybe once in their life for a very intense experience, like a surgery or whatever. But for us, the children's is almost like a second home to us because we're here so often. And so for these families that are here every week, every month, all the service we can get to kind of help distract us a little bit from the craziness that is our life is so appreciated.
That's why we're here. That's why we want to make the phones ring. You're going to hear more stories like this. Listen, I want to thank you so much, Stephanie, for stopping by.
My pleasure.
Thank you for telling people your story, because it's stories like these that we hope will inspire people to call and make a donation. We started a miracle hour at 3 o'clock, so we're about halfway through. We were at 109 hugs. We're down to 60. We need to make that happen before we get to 4 o'clock. This particular hour is a CN Miracle Hour to support the Dr. Clown program here at the Children's, which is so important. So please, 514-939-KIDS. That's 514-939-5437. And I want to just send a shout-out, if I can, to a gentleman by the name of Morris Kershaw, who is 93 years old and just called and made a donation of $100 because he's a sweetheart. I lost my mom about a little over a year ago, and he lives in the same building, and I guess he's a CJD listener. He knows we're here today. He wanted to do his part. So, Morris, thank you. $100 goes a long way, but you know what? So does $5 and $10. So if you can, make that call, make that donation today. 514-939-KIDS. Stephanie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right back.
Bye.